So hopefully you can hear me okay. And I wanted to share with you that the good news right off the bat is that my TikTok was restored after appealing it, after tagging TikTok US on X and making a video blasting them for violating my freedom of speech and stealing my income. So I did not violate any community guidelines. Obviously it's allegedly French government probably reached out to TikTok to try to get these videos taken down. Candace Owens said she had 4 videos of hers on the Macron saga specifically taken down, and it only makes sense that they would come after TikTok if they came after her legally trying to shut her up from doing this series on the Macrons. So they probably pressured TikTok, but I'm glad that they reconsidered it because I definitely made an effort to talk about it hypothetically. It's a story, it's a theory, it's suspected, it's alleged, lots of different terminology in order to frame it as a conspiracy theory, not fact. But anyway, I know a lot of people think that it's a silly thing to be talking about, but I do not agree. We can find a way to gather enough objective data to determine the truth here, right? Like, this is possible. We just have to actually continue to bring it to the fore. And without Candace, I don't think that would be possible. But if we just sort of stand back and say it's nobody's business, then no, nothing will come out of it. They will continue to get away with whatever potential alleged conspiracies might be true. So in my video, what I was doing that was getting a lot of attention was I was sort of connecting the dots. Like, Candace isn't even presenting her own journalism, it's not her investigation that she's talking about. She is presenting this guy, oh gosh, I forgot the name of the journalist, but he was on her show yesterday, and he wrote a book called Becoming Brigitte. And so she's presenting his research. He's a French journalist in English on her show. And she's kind of doing bits and pieces, and it's so fascinating. If you haven't seen, definitely look into it on Candace Owens' podcast on YouTube. But she had to put some of it on her website because YouTube might take it down. And she showed a picture of, and you know what I noticed? I noticed that a whole bunch of people are just today, like posting some of her pictures and the journalist pictures from his book. Because if you want, you can buy his book on Amazon. Just search for Becoming Brigitte, or however you say it with a French accent. But people were posting like, what did I hear about Emmanuel Macron and his wife? Like, do you believe it? Like, I saw a lot of memes today. So it's now just coming into maybe full people's attention. But what she did was she posted this picture of Emmanuel Macron and another man who supposedly is Brigitte's nephew. I think. I'm trying to remember how they presented it. So the guy in the picture next to Emmanuel Macron is Jean-Jacques Trognaux. So Jean-Jacques Trognaux is the son of Jean-Michel Trognaux and Veronique Drew. So Jean-Michel Trognaux is supposed to be Brigitte Macron's brother. And so his son, Jean-Jacques, is supposed to look almost exactly like Emmanuel Macron, who they're not supposed to be related, right? Like, Brigitte married Emmanuel Macron. He's not supposed to be like a family member, but obviously the sordid part of the story that is factual is that he was 14 years old and she was his teacher. I think she was 39 when they first started a romantic relationship, which is already bad, right? But anyway, so this picture surfaced on Candace's podcast, and my little brain was like, wait a minute, she didn't answer that question. Like, she's insinuating something is up there, but didn't actually say what it was. So I started trying to piece things together. So the video that I posted was my theory about how that could be. And so what I suggested was, if this theory is true, if they are actually related, what could have happened if Brigitte and Jean-Michel Trognaux are supposedly the same person, right? Jean-Michel is supposed to be her original male form, but they're also supposed to be brother and sister. Okay, so this is where it gets confusing, right? On the books, technically, they are legitimized as brother and sister, but the conspiracy theory is that Jean-Michel Tragno is or became whatever, however you believe it. He's always been transgender and transitioned into Brigitte. And so the theory is that the real Brigitte died, or she's in complete hiding and has given her blessing to her brother to take on her identity. One of those two options. And so if you look at all the pictures, and they have this AI software that's examining the DNA, not the DNA, but the facial structure, and it's Chinese software that is supposed to be very precise and reliable, and it shows that the pictures between Brigitte Macron and the old pictures do not match, but the pictures between Jean-Michel Tragno and the now Brigitte Macron do match. And so it further corroborates the theory that Jean-Michel Tragno is Brigitte Macron, and that he's just gotten a lot of work to try to feminize himself, which that could probably be proven because she has been shown to be visiting certain plastic surgeons, and yeah, so that part is feasible, but this transgender part, and that there is like a missing sister or a dead sister, like that is where it gets a little shady, right? And so Jean-Michel Tragno had a marriage with this woman, Veronique Drew. And when he was married to Veronique Drew, he had 2 children, Jean-Jacques and another one. And so I'm suggesting that it could be possible that Jean-Michel donated his sperm, right? That he donated his sperm to science. And Emmanuel Macron's parents were doctors. One was a psychiatrist and one was a pediatrician. And the mother, who was the pediatrician, she had this side hobby of treating transgendered patients, and she was an advocate. And there was interviews with patients that said that she helped them have a whole life and helped them feel real. So put 2 and 2 together, right? So this is where your logic takes you. It's that Jean-Michel Tragno, for whatever reason, could have donated his sperm to some kind of experiment that these weird people were involved in, allegedly. And I don't know whose egg it was. It could have been Veronique Drew's eggs as well, but maybe not. Maybe it could have been somebody else's. That is still a question. But anyway, so I believe that there could have been a bunch of like eugenics experiments that he participated in with his sperm. And when somebody donates their sperm, there's really not an attachment to the offspring. You know, you kind of have to like leave it and let it go emotionally. And I think, you know, that's somewhat normalized in our culture. If you're going to be a sperm donor, you kind of detach from the outcome. But I don't think that's what happened in this case. In this case, I really believe that it was like a eugenics experiment. It was somehow connected to like elite, I don't know, shenanigans or whatever. And there was a plan. Obviously, there was a plan on some level to groom someone, right? And so that's how Emmanuel Macron could look so much like this Jean-Michel Tragno's son, but the really exclamation point of grossness is that that would mean that Brigitte Macron, if she, you know, she is presenting as a woman, if she was Jean-Michel Tragno, and that was his sperm that was used to create Emmanuel Macron in 1977 when he was born, then he married and groomed his son. Dun, 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 right? So that is the really crazy part of the story, that if that were true, that's really messed up. And anyway, so that's what I explained in my video on TikTok. I posted it on X as well, so you can see it on X. but it got a lot of attention. It's still getting a lot of attention. And I was just so mad because it's so hard to get a video that goes off like this. And I was really just impressed with the conversation, like the thread. There's like so many comments and people are obsessed with this conspiracy theory and just putting their 2 cents in, and it was great to watch. And all of a sudden the video got taken down yesterday. And I was so mad because I was making like $120 on it. It was, running up on views, and finally I was able to catch a trend that I was interested in a way that capitalized for me as well, and I thought was an important discussion, even though it's a conspiracy theory. And so when I saw Candace got her videos taken down too, I made that other one. And so I'm glad that they accepted my appeal and rescinded the removal. And so it's back up, because honestly, if the government of France pressured them to take it down, it could go both ways. You could argue, well, if it's misinformation, people don't want that stuff that are lies about them to be out there. But isn't that such that the French government would go to those kinds of lengths to take down conspiracy theories? Like, it's just strange that they would approach Candace with this legal letter, trying to have overreach on her right to talk about these things too, right? It seems a little suspect. But with TikTok, they just went through this whole process of defending the ban of TikTok in the US. And the whole argument was for free speech. So I think it was so hypocritical to remove my video because, the French government intimidated them. And it's just me having the ability to create something based on a trend and a conspiracy theory and celebrity gossip that is popular, and to make money. And then they literally took the money out of my account, not my bank account, but like my TikTok revenue account. I saw it go down. It was like like almost $200, and it was down to 24. I was like, so frustrated. And that's why I made an angry video and said something about it. And I thought that actually the video was good. I wasn't too emotional that I did. And they put it back up. So hopefully I feel vindicated that that's not going to happen again, because I want to keep going with this topic and some other ones that I'm passionate about, and see where it takes me, because, like I said, it's really hard to find something to talk about that goes viral. And X is a whole nother conundrum, right? So I'm trying to figure out what to do on X, because I don't like just throwing spaghetti at a wall. It has to be something that I'm genuinely interested in. And yeah, so I'm trying to figure out how to break the code for the X algorithm. But I have some insight on TikTok, so I'm going to try to exploit the wins over there. And yeah, so those were the conspiracies that I wanted to talk about and the censorship that I wanted to talk about. And feel free to jump in or ask a question anytime, but I'm just gonna talk, and then I can save this recording and listen to it later. But in regards to the social media frauds, there just seems to be a trend right now that people are being exposed left and right, and it's almost like this gotcha moment, like everyone wants to get attention by having a gotcha to share, and it's actually creating a lot of anxiety. Sorry, babe. It's creating a lot of anxiety in people out there, just regular folks that, I don't know, I guess are imperfect or have something that they feel guilty about, and they're worried that people are going to start blasting them or accusing them of something. And somebody reached out to me in my DMs and thought that I was talking about or referencing them when I was talking about frauds and narcissists or people who don't write their tweets or whatever it was. And they said, oh, well, we just, we saw all these stories coming out and we thought maybe you were going to do the same thing. And I was like, no. And I think a lot of people read into these posts. And obviously it's all very sensationalized and a lot of drama. And the thing with the Hannah patriarch, and I think there were a couple more, but there are some real con artists out there that really misuse and exploit their following. It is pretty twisted to create a whole identity and carry it out to such an extent like she did, which I don't think is rare. I honestly think there are a lot of people out there that do that. I mean, there was a story about carnivore Aurelius being being a woman, I think, at one point. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't feel like anything came about after that got thrown out there. And, people just kind of laugh and follow or don't follow and pay attention to their advice or not. But when it's like Hannah, she really created a real life and persona with pictures and, made up timestamps, and she went to great lengths. People in the DMs. I just don't know how you get away with that. I'm the vetting specialist, so I'm always very sus of people who are behind anon accounts, and still, I'm pretty open with people, and I don't, I will guard private things, but I still sort of give people reasonable doubt. But I think to attach to a figurehead that is anonymous is so dangerous. Like, it's one thing with my community. They see me, they see my baby, they're with me on walks, and it's just very transparent, right? And we have like a tight-knit community mostly it's in my Instagram. And that's one thing, right? Because it's also over a long period of time. It's over years and years. And there's actually a lot of people have come to my house. So that's different. But when it's someone so removed like that and anonymous like that, I just find it's like we need to all be doing our due diligence to vet, right? And that's why, the vetting system doesn't just apply to romantic dating situations. Like, it applies to vetting people, across the board, and making sure that you are being observant and you're not being impulsive and prematurely giving trust and respect to someone who does not, it just is not appropriate. It's premature. And sometimes I think we can jump ahead and give it before it's really due. So I just caution people about that. And it's a good reminder, right, just to be careful. But then the whole thing with Ashley St. Clair, I think that was of a different type, right? I think people are throwing around like the fraud and the this because basically she's displaying more liberal, personal relationships, and she presents as more of a conservative, and she was in the calendar, she writes for conservative, she authored a conservative book, and she's definitely MAGA, and she goes to all these right-wing things. But I think it's one thing to say, okay, so I'm conservative in politics, but in my private life I may be a little bit more liberal, right? And so I'm not going to align with your views on personal relationships, premarital exploits or whatever. And I think that's fair enough. Okay, someone is requesting, let's see, invite, add a speaker. Okay, feel free to jump in. It's arrogant. Oh, I see.
Hey, Dr. Taylor.
Hi, what do we call you?
Argante Ajol.
Okay, nice.
It sounds more beautiful that way.
Yes, it does.
So the funny story, going back to when I first joined, if you look at my handle, it's humble, right? But after 3-4 months, I just had to change this because that's a reflection of what I saw mostly over here. Arrogant assholes. So you know what? I guess that is widely accepted. So let me at least change my name. And it was all, but no, 100%. What you're talking about. It's kind of my experience on here, especially being in spaces and all that stuff in the last year and a half. It has kind of left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. And, I always talk with, clean slate, give everybody respect, but at the same time, I'm kind of observing them and stuff too. And over the course, it's once the honeymoon phase is over, you get to see those people over and over again, and those little nuances start showing up and stuff. And if you're not observant, then you can, you end up being caught up in some drama that you did not even sign up, or you did not even know that you were in a drama.
Yeah.
And so then sometimes it's harmless, but sometimes it can be problematic. At the very least, it takes away your peace of mind, your mental sanity and stuff. And then I've seen people coming here, sitting here and justifying and doing this and that, taking all the time and energy to even go up to lawyers and stuff and doxing people. All the time and energy some people spend on all this garbage, if they actually focus it on to positive things, or if there's nothing else, just stay away from here and stop spreading that negativity, the world would be a much better place. But alas, I don't. But anyways, I just wanted to quickly say hello, and I've been enjoying what you were talking about, and so I just quickly wanted to add that yeah, like I've been I've had to kind of be very mindful of who I'm like hanging out with and associating with and all of that stuff. And some of the folks that I had in really high regards, I caught them, and I kind of like don't blame them either. Or partly blame them, partly don't, because in this whole social media game, everybody's doing whatever it needs to get done to survive and stay up and relevant and all of that. And sometimes some people might want to take some shortcuts or whatever have you, and that's just human nature. Some people will learn and change their strategy. Some people just continue doing that. And I think, at least for me, it's important to identify, who that person is that I'm hanging out with and stuff. And just be mindful to what you were saying earlier. Like, just be mindful of, like, you're vetting people out all across the board. It's not just in dating. Your friendships, like your works, your relationship, your other relationship on Twitter Space, and I think more so because people can hide and not show who they are, and so it takes time, 5 6 months or something like that to kind of figure things out. So, but yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thanks for letting me share.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. And you're right. I think it's important to know how social media works, not as a consumer, but as a think of themselves as someone who is asserting themselves and presenting themselves on social media and figuring out the algorithms to an extent, and what you want to do with it. Are you just consuming? Or if you're using it to connect with people, recognizing that there is different intent and different levels to people's personas, and that they will have a transactional mindset. A lot of people will have that transactional mindset. A lot of people's principles go out the window when it comes to making money and being relevant, like you said, online, having that leverage, right, that to influence. A lot of it is about the bottom line for people, making money, surviving, and knowing that people will lie, people will cheat, and people will stab you in the back if it means that they will be preserving themselves. And I think that's, pretty nihilistic, but it's the reality, and it's what I keep learning over and over again. But what I think is the worst is when people pretend to be a good person. They pretend to be, whether it's Christian or they're just principled and they have integrity, and they're, trying to brown nose left and right, and, use emojis and compliment you. And really that's all for show, right? It's almost like love bombing. If we think of it as like a narcissistic, method of gaining people's affection, or just they want to be liked. And so then that gives them the cloak in which to maneuver behind the scenes with more Machiavellian intent, more selfish intent, right? But some people really do want to exploit or dominate over other people, right? And some people really just are thinking about themselves and trying to get as much as they can for themselves, and thinking about it like a zero-sum game and competing all the time, right? Whether you realize it or not. And some people are just more genuine, and there's a mix of both, right? So I think it's worse when someone is presenting to be authentic and genuine and just really wants to connect with people, but they really are not like that at all. So when I find out that someone is like that, then I just kind of write them off at that point. It takes me a while to sort of definitively determine that I'm writing them off, because that's their bottom line. So if I do that, I don't do that lightly. And I don't usually blast them publicly unless I have to, unless I'm provoked, unless they want to start something and I feel like I have to, defend myself in a way or clarify the situation because they're trying to tarnish my name, defame me, or whatever, right?
Right,
And
right. No, I take the same approach as you. Like,
yeah,
walking away is probably sometimes the best from these things. So, no, but I agree with you 100%.
yeah, and we'll see. Sometimes I don't, because I don't pay attention to them anymore. I don't follow them. I might even block them. Sometimes I don't see things, and so it will come to my attention by way of somebody else, or just randomly I'll see something. And so then I realize, oh shoot, that I do have to address this more because they're saying things that are not true. So that situation to navigate as well on social media. But the one particular case that I am very vocal about is the Sadia Khan, Sadia Psychology situation.
Is that is Sadia Khan, that the one from like somewhere in the Middle East, and there was an affair going on with like that guy Saad or something like that? Is that the one you're talking about? Or different Sadia? Sadia Khan. Maybe they're different. You're saying Sadia Khan, because I know there was some drama going on with like Samira Khan.
I'm not
and
sure.
She used to do all these geopolitical news and all of that stuff. But yeah, maybe I'm talking about somebody else. But
yeah, I think it is a different person, but I'm not sure if that's someone that has been brought to my attention before. But no, Sadia Khan is this beautiful Pakistani dating and relationship coach that has been on like
okay.
All these huge podcasts, and she goes by the moniker of Sadia Psychology. And it was 2 years ago that the whole thing started, the origin story, the root cause of our sort of rivalry. But anyway, bottom line is that we have exposed her, not just me, but several hundreds of people at this point, but it hasn't really gotten public. Like, it hasn't really gotten to the top of the chain for people to really address this story properly. But she is not a psychologist, and she continues to present herself as such, and it goes beyond that. But she's basically, like, I'll just say it, allegedly fabricated her degrees and everything that she has online are basically falsified information or manipulated information to the public to present herself as legitimate when she's not. And that is one concern, a big concern. But the bigger issue is probably the danger that she poses to people, because she is like, the way that she's behaving, her behaviors indicate a tendency towards narcissistic personality. So if she's a narcissist, I wouldn't be surprised.
Normalizing narcissism going well on all these podcasts and all these people. So I'm like, the things weren't worse enough already. Thank you, Sadia Khan.
Right, but like, the way that she behaves is very abusive, and I've been given firsthand, well, they're secondhand to me, but from the person that she's talking to, they're firsthand, and they've given me the screenshots of her conversations, and I've had my own conversations with her, so I know that it's true, but she has been goading people to unalive themselves, right? Like, literally saying, you need to KILL yourself, and you know what I mean? Like, this is horrible. This is really, really, really bad and criminal harassment, bullying, and
on a side note, I'm wondering if she's a WEF plant, because they're really big on hey, the population is growing, so if you want to go, we can help you, because they have programs like MedAid or something like that up in Canada. Or if you want to say that, where hey, if you want to, unalive yourself, so the government can help you.
Wow, I don't know, but...
And so now that you're talking about all the fabricated degrees and all of these credentials, hey, maybe something, maybe we need to dig deeper into what's going on, because there's characters like her, Yuval Noah Harari, and there's a bunch of other characters where it just like, something is not right. They sound one way, they sound like they want to benefit, they're here to help you, they want to benefit you, but underneath, it's all very nefarious.
Yeah, it's very nefarious, that's for sure. And I'm concerned for the damage that she's doing to people that she's not only working with, but people that are, consuming her content, and that she's engaging with forums, like how she behaves to people. It's really disgusting. But if people are coming to her as a potential patient, and they're vulnerable, they're traumatized, and she bullies them, then you can really set people off quite easily. So I am definitely concerned by her level.
So then I have a question.
Yeah.
What? So, see, obviously now that you know, there's others in the community that know about her, and you said that you guys were taking some action, but nothing really has come to any sort of fruition. So I'm just curious as to where that whole thing stands. Clearly, she's causing harm. There's a lot of other professionals in the industry that are seeing this and calling her out. Are have there any steps been taken? Is there any progress even being made, or is just everything is just going into like everything you guys are saying is currently going into a black? So I'm just curious as to where it's at.
Well, it's there is no recourse from a healthcare perspective because she's not licensed. So if you're not licensed, you can't be held to ethical standards, right? Like the ethics board, you can only report a professional if they are registered, if they're licensed. If they're not registered because they're not a professional, they're just a public citizen. And so if a public citizen is running a business fraudulently and misrepresenting themselves, it's a criminal case or a civil case, right? And so it depends on the evidence provided. And so what I think people have been told is that they have to have been a client, they have had to have had direct, interactions with her to then pursue more of a criminal fraud case. But the bigger, more convoluted charge is cyberbullying, cyber harassment, but it's so hard across jurisdictions. So I think people are having a hard time gathering enough evidence to hold her to that. So some of these clients are not really comfortable taking it to court criminally, and they feel intimidated by her because she's quite scary the way that she goes on, and so she intimidates them into silence. So it needs to go up the chain and for people more at an advanced level and exposure. Like really, that's what it requires, is for her to be exposed at a higher level because someone has done it. There's an article written up about her that goes, there's Reddit threads about it, so it's out at that high enough level. But she continues to harass me and defame me whenever she feels like it, and I just ignore her completely and just collect whatever evidence she emails me for whatever, just to have it. But
That's
anyway,
probably the best strategy.
yeah. So like the thing is that it kind of blends with this last point that I wanted to make, is that a lot of these cases of frauds, like even if we look at these celebrity cases that are going on, like with the Ryan Reynolds and the Emmanuel Macron.
Online.
Sorry?
What's going on with the Ryan Reynolds? I've seen something, but I'm not sure. All I know is that he was being called a narcissist and he's being funny and stuff. That's all I know. Macron stuff, is it that his wife is a man?
I went into detail at the beginning of this, so I'll leave that one, but you can look at the videos that I posted on my timeline. But for Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, like they're being exposed because they have orchestrated a smear campaign against a colleague, this director of this movie that Blake was working with. And so they're now being shown to be narcissists because they kind of manipulated and conspired this whole plan to accuse him of sexual harassment, steal his movie away from him, and basically just feel like they're in power and he's smushed, like for no real reason other than they were jealous or whatever, right? So that's a very abridged version, but the way that Candace Owens has exposed it has been hilarious because Justin Baldoni is a real softie. He is a male feminist, like through and through, and so throughout the whole thing, he's been nothing but like disgustingly nice to Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, and he didn't defend himself until recently, and his lawyers have thrown everything at him. That it's not based on facts. It's all based on like twisting things, like half-truths, and manipulating the narrative to make him look bad, and trying to save face, basically. So, it's going to probably end up settled out of court, and they'll lose a ton of money because they just look really evil. But going back to narcissism, a lot of this comes back to pathology, like psychopathology and vetting. So looking out for the red flags in people's personalities and behaviors to spot very good covert, psychopaths, narcissists, coercive controllers. These are all dark triad Machiavellian personalities, and they exist out there. They proliferate. I mean, I shared a stat from someone that I'm connected to on X, Dr. Karen Mitchell. She did a whole research. Her whole research is dedicated to this, and so she said that the rate of these diagnoses is underreported because the studies were done in prison populations, but that her study reveals that it's probably more like 15% of the world's population falls into these categories. And so it is common interaction when we talk about the dating world. People will use the term and they will talk about their narcissistic ex, and every ex has been a narcissist, and obviously I don't believe that that is accurate, but there is some truth to it. I mean, there is the NPD, classic personality disorder, and then there are just narcissistic things that everyone can be guilty of, like vanity and arrogance and just sort of transactional behavior, stuff like that. So you have to know the distinction, but some people are very, very dangerous and evil, and so those are the people that are most likely orchestrating these sort of high level, just like Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. Like, I don't know if we would have figured this out if this whole thing didn't happen with Justin Baldoni. Like, they could have just carried on and lived their life with their but why they felt the need to blow things up this way over this, I don't know, personal vendetta, it's just, they can go under the radar for a very long time. And if you feel, there's something, I just posted a video about how you're arguing with a narcissist. So this is a good vetting test, right, or an opportunity. You don't want to, make it happen, like falsify it, but allow tension to happen in an interaction, whether it's a relationship, whatever the case may be. Do not avoid any stress or conflict with people, because if you're always just dancing on, so you have to poke a little bit deeper than the surface in order to determine someone's character. And if you just want to stay loosely connected to as many people as possible, then by all means stay on the surface, but know that there may create some kind of problems for you because you're associating with people who are narcissists and psychopaths and frauds. So if you want to make sure and clarify that you're not connected to these types, you have to have some courage and you have to go a little deeper and stress the relationship. Like, don't shy away, like, whatever, tension. Confront it. And I don't mean that in an aggressive way, but just, problem solving, repair in a healthy way. And if you end up dealing with someone who is constantly, in the video, like I talk about, they are constantly, trying to one-up themselves over you and put yourself down. Like they want you to be wrong, and so that they can feel like they're in control. So they will continue to, it's like, I call it the straw man. Like, they will continue to just hyper-focus on, like, distractions or changing the subject or, unrelated issues and attacking you rather than actually deal with the matter at hand. And like I said, they're very, everything, like, it's exhausting to deal with them. You will feel like everything is one-sided and that you're trapped. It's a very hostile environment when you're trying to argue with a narcissist. So if you feel that way, don't internalize it, don't personalize it, don't carry that sense of responsibility to try to fix that this is an unreasonable person and that, you've now exposed them for yourself. Like, you don't have to expose them to the world. Most of the time it's just for yourself, for your own purposes. Okay, that was not okay. That is not healthy. So I do not want to associate with that. I'm going to cut ties. So looking out for those red flags is really important. But other red flags that I would say are inconsistencies. Like, little detail. Sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. If they share things and, like, they just don't add up, just details don't add up, or you realize, like, they can't with their stories. And the great thing about social, you get to observe people's behavior when they don't even know it, right? Like, you see them writing tweets, comments, responding to conversations, and sometimes I'll catch things that people say and I'm like, not accurate. I know that that's not true. And so if you, or you'll see the way that they interact with people when there's a disagreement. And if someone can't handle disagreement, I mean, obviously disagreement is tough for everybody, feel better about themselves by making other people feel small and them is what I say. Like if you can't have a respectful disagreement, that's usually a good sign that they're immature emotionally. May not be a narcissist, but at least they're emotionally immature. And just going back to this red flag of these inconsistent details, or catching people in these white lies. I don't even call them white lies, because it's like, I think it's intentional. I don't think it's a white lie, and it really doesn't have a purpose other than to present yourself in a light that garners attention or accolades or whatever, And so if you're going to manipulate the truth in order to just, it's like you spin everything. These people will spin things to make them look good, to make them be liked. And that is not okay. In my book, I see that and I'm like, okay, this is twisted. This is not just something little. This is something big, because anyone who's going to do that can really not be trusted. They just can't be trusted. They're not honest people. Someone's not an honest person. If you see them out there doing good, I don't believe it. They're just schmoozing. They're just brown-nosing. It's very easy to love bomb people, from a distance. You what do you call it? I forget the term, but you just, you give them a bottle of wine, you send them a gift, you give them compliments. Like, it's very easy to let people's guards down, or gain favor from people. It doesn't mean they're a good person. So I'm very wary of people like that, even if they present as
like those con men, kind of like con artist kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I get to know you, what you like, blah blah blah, schmooze you, all that stuff. You feel like, oh, we're buddies. This guy hits me, and next thing you know, you're robbed.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, sometimes it can be very extensive, the lengths that they'll go to, and they'll try to do it with multiple people so that those people have their back, right? So it's like they love bomb this group of people, they isolate
their network of flying monkeys or whatever it's called. Like they're support group, right? And they stick with each other because they know that it's like the thieves having each other's back, but there still will never be integrity amongst thieves. That kind of
Yeah, and I would just ask those people, I'm like, have you ever actually had a proper conflict with them, or have you always just had fun together, or been in agreement, or kind of just, I don't know, like shared laughs, like it's all been light? Or have they shown up for you in hard times, and have they been able to accountable, that they can admit when they're wrong, that they do the right thing when no one's looking, like that's when you get really more information about somebody. And most of the time on social media, it's just surface level socialization. So anyway, that was kind of, I thought that a good place to end on is just action steps, and really, what you can take from that is looking for those red flags of psychopathy. Personality disorders are really hard sometimes to see. Borderline personality disorder can be, oh gosh, it's definitely more, like it can demonstrate or present, it can present in more psychotic ways too, because of the emotional dysregulation of the person. They can have like significant delusions, but I think a lot of people talk about being in a relationship with borderline personality disorder as being like the crazy woman who is unhinged and makes your life miserable and accuses you of things, and you kind of like an Amber Heard sort of situation. So they're out there too online, and you have to watch out for them.
Right. And then all I have to say is thank you, Dr. Taylor. This was a great conversation. I mean, a lot of it, what you said was just like confirming what I was already thinking about and stuff. And for me, it's like, unfortunately or fortunately, I've lived enough life, and I would really like to thank my ex-girlfriend for getting me a really close and look around the narcissistic personality. And so, like, now it's easy for me to identify those things, right? There's no, like, I don't like, like, it's not like, oh, maybe I should give this person more chance and see if there's any changes. I've seen enough where within a certain period of time, once I've observed that, I know which direction it's going to go. So it really helps me kind of stay away from it. And then that's also, like you were saying, right? We all have narcissistic tendencies, right? We all have them, right? And it just starts with having some self-awareness. And, sometimes some of it is healthy, and sometimes when it's unhealthy, you just be able to have that self-awareness to be able to catch yourself. And the process is staying humble and, have some humility and, I guess, kindness goes a long way. Yeah, I digress.
No, yeah, that's very true, and I think that's why I focus on the repair, right? Like if you exact moment, right? Like when you're triggered, when you're emotionally dysregulated, you're not always going to be in the right mindset to, you know, have a solution. But at least you come back and you can be humble enough and you can, take accountability and talk about maybe things you wish you had done differently or things that you did wrong, apologize, or even if it's not like anyone to blame, but you're just trying to clear the air, you're trying to build a bridge, you're trying, you know what I mean? Like you're just trying to be cordial. And then if you can do that, then that's your part of the responsibility. If other people cannot do that, that's their responsibility, and that's it. So I think just welcome the opportunity. Make sure that you're capable of doing those repair skills. Like you have to be a good listener, you have to have empathy, you have to have emotional discipline, but you don't have to be perfect. Like if people are provoking you, obviously, you don't have to be a rock in order to be healthy. Like you're going to have human, reactions to things, like when people are trying to provoke you. But at least back out of a conversation if it's going haywire, and come back and try to address it later on. And then if you can't, then it's okay. I would say do not try to, I call it feed the bears. If you know someone is just aggro, like just leave them. Like don't try to provoke them further. Don't try to punish yourself by, trying over and over again. Like you said, you learn that
Unless you're
from a
having
relationship.
fun. Unless you're having fun. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Taylor. You have a wonderful evening. I'll
You
see you.
too. All
Take
right.
care.
Have a good night.